Well, thank you all for being here. My name is David Bowman. I'm the tutoring coordinator with the BCSCR project, which is the acronym for Building Communities That Support Children's Learning. And I'm going to, for just a moment, give you a quick idea about what BCSCR is, and then we'll talk about what the tutoring program looks like, and hopefully some of you folks will be interested in becoming tutors with us. BCSCR, or Building Communities That Support Children's Learning, is funded by a federal award of $10.8 million that we received beginning of October. It's a 2-year project, and it really has some very simple goals. More kids are reading, and more kids are reading better. So everything that we put into this project is really around that. When we designed it, we thought very carefully about what are all the influences on children's reading. The home piece, the community piece, which is different, the school piece, the library piece, the training piece, the individual instructional piece, all of these things. And then we developed strategies that would affect each of these areas and provide the kinds of resources and training that and support that kids need, with the goal of more kids reading and more kids reading better. So the piece that we're specifically talking about tonight is the tutoring component. Specifically, what does tutoring look like under BCSCR? And I'll give you just a moment of my background and how we designed this piece. I used to run a 4-state tutoring program covering all of New Mexico, a little bit of Texas, a little bit of Arizona, and a little bit of Colorado, which very interestingly is the same service area that we have for BCSCR. With the structure that we put into place and the resources and the support and so on, we had very strong success with our reading program. And the tutoring period was 3 months. It was 2 hours a week for 3 months. On average, kids made 1.4 grade level gain during that 3-month period, which is pretty good, right? And as we looked at the data, what we found was that we had this average of 1.4, but the standard deviation was small, which meant that most kids were clustered right around that 1.4. We had some made a little less, we had some that made quite a bit more, but most kids made right around 1.4 years gain. These were poor kids. These were kids struggling in school. These were kids that were failing. These were at-risk kids. These were not the exceptional students, and yet we found these gains. And the reason why we found it is because of the elements that the tutoring program you're going to see here tonight. So we know that it works, and we know that this approach works. So for one part, we're very happy to share it with you, and second, we're hoping that some of you folks are going to inspire and join us and become tutors with BCSCR and help kids make these kinds of gains. So let me introduce a couple of other folks that are here. So I'm David Bowman, the tutoring coordinator. Over here we have Dr. Linda Coy, who is the project director. And over here we have Bobby Zemanek-White, who is the curriculum and instruction coordinator. Now, the way it works is the majority of the activities and whatnot at the local level feed through Bobby. And then she and I collaborate on the tutoring piece, and I've managed mainly just the tutoring component of this particular project. So, with that in mind, let's take a look at how we go about helping kids to get that 1.4 grade level gain, and what it actually looks like. So, the stated goal for the project, as expressed in our federal application, is this: demonstrably and sustainably improve children's literacy outcomes, of which this is obviously a strong piece. So here is the 10,000-foot view of what the tutoring component looks like. We'll look at the details in a moment. We'll look at what people actually do in the tutoring session, what the responsibilities and expectations are. But let's just take a quick overview and see what the whole thing looks like. All right, so first, the tutoring period is governed by a pre- and post-assessment. The tutors during the first session or two give an assessment. They give it again at the end. All right? We give it at the beginning because we need to find out, what do kids need, right? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What are the areas in which the tutor needs to provide the greatest emphasis? And of course, we give it at the end to see, have we actually done anything, right? The second major component is to know that we also have an assessment which the tutors use at various periods throughout. It's a standards-based assessment that basically says, the target areas we're looking at, what does it look like for a first grader? So if we call that the standard level, the level 4, let's say, the satisfactory level, what are the pre-levels? So we can look at what is the rubric of kids' reading abilities, and we can say, where are they on this rubric, and what do we need to do to get them to the next step? Now, a couple things that we know about reading is it's impossible to take a weak reader and then jump them all the way to a grade level, or jump them all the way to proficient, because there are in-between stages and concepts that have to be learned, and strategies that have to be developed. One of the flaws I think we make in reading instruction in schools is we're teaching kids all the strategies and content they know to be at grade level, but for many kids, it's too big of a jump. So we put these rubrics in place so we can say, not where are we going to end up, let's not aim for where we're going to end up, let's aim for the next step. When we attain that, then we aim for the next step, then we aim for the next step. So it's systematic and allows children to develop those core understandings and core principles that enable them to read well. And finally, it's a comprehensive and relevant design. Comprehensive means we're addressing all the major factors of reading, and it's relevant, which means the instruction needs to apply to the student's interests and abilities. It's relevant to the individual student. In a regular classroom with your 15, 20, 30 kids, it's very difficult to tailor the instruction to an individual child. It's just hard to do. In many cases, perhaps impossible. But our tutoring groups only have 3 or 4 kids in them at once. One tutor, 3 or 4 kids. With that kind of a structure, it is possible to tailor the instruction to the specific child's needs. We kind of addressed this instruction guided by results as we're looking at those rubrics. What have we accomplished? What's our next step? And so forth. So it guides us through the entire process. And finally, the logistics themselves, the structure itself of the tutoring component or the tutoring process enables the kinds of results we see. It's that small group tutoring, it's very intimate, it's sustained over a long period of time. Just to give you a preview of that, what the tutoring looks like is 2 hours a week, 16 weeks. Now when we ran this program before, it was 2 hours a week, 3 months, right? And we got 1.4 grade level gain. Now we're looking at a 4-month period, so we're expanding it by a third. So my expectation is that we should greatly surpass the results that we saw previously. We'll have to see, right? But we're certainly not going to do any worse. And if we can just match it, we're going to do fine.